one of the most important lessons that we learn at YG is that progress doesn't require perfection to start. Sustainability can feel overwhelming, especially for airports managing tight budgets and operational complexity. But taking the first step, even if it's small and imperfect, creates momentum.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. I'm your host, Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simply Flying. Every Thursday, I have important conversations with top aviation executives, technology entrepreneurs, and policymakers helping aviation take climate action. Conversations that help separate the signal from the noise. Whether you are a frequent flyer or an airline executive, if you care about sustainability or simply love traveling, welcome aboard. My guest today is Marion Chivot-Legris, who leads sustainability at Edmonton International Airport in Alberta, Canada. What's interesting is that Marion used to work with Air France-KLM. A few years ago, when they operated their sustainable flight as part of SkyTeam's Sustainable Flight Challenge, as it was called then, Marion worked on that flight to Edmonton, met the Edmonton Airport team, and is now leading sustainability for the airport. I found this to be a very fascinating interview in terms of innovation at the airport, how it can benefit the entire ecosystem. And little known fact, even though it's the 5th largest airport in Canada by traffic, it is the largest airport in Canada by land area, about twice the size of Heathrow. So Marion and I dive into exactly how they're creatively thinking about sustainability as well as S and G of the ESG in totality. Marion and I will both be in Pittsburgh at the World Innovation Summit organized by Future Travel Experience, happening in mid-May. We'll be speaking about sustainability, and this conversation is a sneak preview of what to expect at the World Innovation Summit. Marion, welcome to the show. You lead sustainability at Edmonton, but you have a background in Air France-KLM. Tell me about your background. What got you going from an airline field into the airport field, and is it any different?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. And yes, I'm not new to the aviation sector. I actually started my career in aviation 5 years ago, right at the beginning of COVID, which was an interesting career move, I would say. And so I was leading back then the sustainability for Air France-KLM North America, so Canada, the US, Mexico, and French Polynesia. And I'm now the director of ESG, Environment, Social, Governance, and Sustainability Strategy at Edmonton International Airport. And I'm very excited about moving from the airline lens to the airport lens. I think that gives me a good understanding about what's going on, on the apron and on the runways and up in the air, and trying to see what we can do on the airport side in terms of infrastructure and supporting the airlines and other partners. So my role at the airport is about embedding ESG principles in everything that we do. So that's from strategy to partnerships to operations and innovation. So that means that I'm here to help the airport, and not just on the environmental aspects, but also on the social impact. For me, a typical day never exists. No 2 days are ever the same.
Glad to hear that. And just for those who are unaware, Edmonton International Airport is Canada's 5th busiest airport by passenger traffic, so one of the top 5, and is the largest by land area. This is interesting. Are you able to give us an overview of what makes Edmonton Airport unique and why sustainability is a core value?
Yeah, so yes, indeed. Edmonton International Airport, YG for the code, is a bit of a hidden gem. We're actually indeed the largest airport in the country when it comes to land area, so 7,000 acres. To put that in perspective, I checked yesterday, it's a little bit more than twice the size of Heathrow Airport in London. So that gives
Wow,
you
twice the size.
yeah, that gives you the space and the freedom as well to rethink what an airport can be. And so YG is nestled in the heart of Alberta. We're surrounded of open prairie skies, and the Rocky Mountains are not too far either. But that really set us apart in terms of like putting in place a bold vision for how an airport can serve as a sustainability engine for an entire region. And so we have what we call an airport city sustainability compass, and that brings together clean energy companies, logistics, agri-food technologies, as well as education in one integrated ecosystem. And so it's not just about aviation; it's about building a future where you have ESG and also economic growth progressing, you know, at the same time, hand in hand.
I have to pause you. I have to pause you there, Marion. I'm trying to make sense of this. I know of uh, examples like this where Dubai airport, for example, has a flower cargo area, but that's related to aviation. What's agri-food got to do with travel or aviation? Like, how does this all tie in?
Well, agri-food is definitely related to, our cargo activities, but we're also having, some, because we have so much land, we have some, activity going on, and we have the hemp industry, for example. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with what hemp is for, but we support the Alberta Hemp Alliance, and we're here to support. And hemp is a fast-growing plant with minimal need for pesticides and water. So, and it's extremely efficient at absorbing and looking at um, uh, carbon. So agriculture, and not just specifically agri-food, but agriculture have a lot of potential. And agri-food is just, import export. There is so much going on in the prairies provinces in Canada, and cargo and our cargo activity are here to support that for the region.
Very, very interesting. Who would have thought that we have such a forward-thinking airport in one northern wintry part of Canada? Now, again, YEG was an early leader in advancing bold climate commitments. Today, you're aligning your strategy around achieving net zero by 2050. You have emphasis on your own operation. What motivated this strategic shift, and what's your sustainability approach going forward?
So yeah, we've been clearly way before I joined the airport a leader in advancing climate commitments. And I would say like the sustainability journey has started over 2 decades ago, I would say. And basically many of our initiatives have started way before it was becoming a buzzword or like a trend. And I remember when I started my career, sustainability was not that trendy. It was just a 1 or 2 person trying to change the world and make a difference. And so at the airport, I think, we had a clear understanding about, climate related risks and opportunities for our infrastructure. And so we kind of were motivated by that understanding to put in place some strategic moves towards achieving net zero by 2050. And we also recognize that airports play an important part in the whole kind of sustainability transition for a sector. We need to support airlines and other partner on that journey, because we all consider like aviation as a hard to abate sector. The solution are not necessarily at the level of maturity or not available. So important that we kind of like have an alignment on our commitment to support the whole industry. What we're trying to do with our airport city sustainability campus is one example, but like all the partnerships and like the research that we're doing, the analysis is really kind of like trying to move the whole sector all together for a greener aviation sector.
Now, the proof is in the pudding, right? And one of the metrics that you have going for you is that a YEG is now a level 2 rated in ACI's Airport Carbon Accreditation, ACA program. What do you think are some of the key initiatives you took that helped you get to a level 2 reduction rating?
Yeah, so to get there, obviously, we had to first meet all the level one requirements, which meant mapping a full carbon footprint assessment with a GHG inventory and also putting management systems in place. Level two goes even further. So we had to set clear targets, demonstrate effective carbon management, but also prove that we actually reduce emissions compared to previous years. And that progress didn't happen overnight. That's the result of several years of work, and it goes from everything from optimizing building systems, energy use, engaging our teams across the airport. And one major initiative that I would like to share today is the installation of a 4.5 megawatt cogeneration plant in 2021, and that cogen provide heat and power to the terminal. So that's one initiative, and I can talk about that later. And also another initiative that we put in place is like almost 7 years of LED conversions within the terminal, as well as aprons, to really reduce electric consumption. These are things that help us also to participate to the Canada's net zero challenge that really pushed us to develop intermediary targets, make sure that we have checkpoints to ensure that we're on track, because it's not an easy journey. Now our focus is to move to level three, and the focus would be to really work even closer with our partners, making sure the whole ecosystem is on board with us. So it means that goes beyond our own footprint. Airlines, tenants, ground handlers, really working all together to reduce our emission. We know we can't do this alone, and collaboration is.
That's fascinating. Now, on the rating, I remember a discussion, and I wonder if you are willing to comment. I remember a discussion a couple of years ago from a airport head of sustainability who said, "You know what? Instead of trying to strive for these ratings and paying for some of these audits, I would rather spend the same amount of money getting LED lights on my runway." How do you actually differentiate whether the money is better spent in getting a rating like this, which gives you credibility, versus spending the same amount of money in turning to LED bulbs, for example?
Yeah, no, I think it's important to have the right balance and just making sure, the efforts are there where it makes sense. I was attending a conference this week, and two things that I really kind of take as a takeaway was disclosure is not performance, and the other thing is that you need to explore what makes sense for your organization. And so these framework and these accreditation, I think, are important, especially to kind of guide the efforts to really help narrow down where that makes sense for us as an airport. And yeah, make sure that the money that we spend makes a lot of sense. And I have one of my colleagues that say bang for the buck. It's like really making sure that whatever we're exploring really have a strong impact on the bottom line, and that it is impactful indeed. It's not an easy exercise.
Right, right, exactly. Now, amongst all your initiative, what are some of the big flagship projects that you are proudest about on sustainability at YEG?
So obviously there is a lot that we're proud of, but a few flagship projects that really stand out, according to me, is because that kind of set the tone for the future and the vision that we're trying to build at YAG. One of the biggest one, I would say, and we're not just alone on that, is our hydrogen ecosystem. So we're in Alberta, right in the heart of Canada's hydrogen corridor. Just for a figure, 60%, roughly 60% of the hydrogen produced in Canada is produced in Edmonton metropolitan region. So that gives us a really kind of interesting landscape to develop partnerships. And so we've partnered with industry leaders to explore what could be done in terms of like infrastructure development that could power everything from ground support equipment to, let's dream, regional flights and commuter flights, because we know that it's a portion of flights where it could benefit from the hydrogen technology, like the first. It's early days, but I would say it's bold, and that's just that kind of potential of transforming, the sector and have a positive impact for the region and for the communities around us. Um, from the aviation side, we're also working with stakeholder to create um, a great foundation for sustainable aviation fuel, because we know that's something that is the key technology for unlocking, the reduction of emission necessary for sector. We're not a fuel supplier ourselves, and that's not necessarily what we want to be, but what we want to be is like supporting, a great support of the ecosystem that can enable low carbon flight. And so all these projects that I'm naming are tying back to our net zero plan. So it's not just focusing on our airport's footprint, it's also looking at the full picture, because the idea is to build now, so then emission reduction can, accelerate and just, lead the sector to a better place.
You mentioned hydrogen and SAF. Now, given where Edmonton is, if you have hydrogen, you need to work with an airline. You are from Air France KLM Group. You know how this works, right? How do you work with the ecosystem here to get hydrogen in and be used with an airline, or get working with hydrogen aircraft producers? You as an airport can only do so much here, isn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And maybe I'll focus a little bit more on hydrogen and deep dive. So it's very soothing. It's like hydrogen is not necessarily ready for a flight for tomorrow. I think there is a lot of things that need to be put in place in terms of infrastructure development, standards, regulation, training as well. But because of our unique location at the heart of Alberta's hydrogen corridor, with direct access to low carbon hydrogen production very close by, and also a strong network of partners committed to energy innovation, that give us a position where we can actually sit down for a minute and ask ourselves, okay, if the ultimate goal is to have, a partnership with an airline flying on hydrogen, what do we need to put in place now to make sure we're ready when that time comes? And so for us, for example, is looking at the on-the-ground infrastructure development. So we already have Toyota Mirai's car on site running on hydrogen. So we had to have a partnership to have a temporary fueler on our airport operation facility to support that, to kind of like showcase that it's safe, that the regulation needs some adaptation, training people, and just making sure that it's running, it's safe, it's working, and we can develop that at scale. So we're really doing that. We have a fleet of vehicles. We have Toyota Mirais, and we also have a Nexo by Hyundai running on the air side of the airport. It's an inspection vehicle. And so by doing that, it takes time, but it's just checkpoints to make sure, it's working, and we demonstrate that these applications are powerful. And then slowly but surely we'll move to something a little bit bigger. So moving from light duty to heavy duty vehicle running on hydrogen. And I'm sure you saw it recently. We announced a partnership with DTI, Diesel Tech Industries, to convert two of our runway sweepers to hydrogen diesel dual fuel using their technology, the Guardian hydrogen diesel system technology. And so we moved from a light duty to heavy duty. And again, like we unlocking new levels, I would say. And by having this type of technology kind of up and running, we believe that at some point we'll be ready for having, the infrastructure ready, the regulation adapted for hydrogen power aircraft. And that will come along with airlines. I would say right now it's just still early stages on partnering with airlines on hydrogen, because it's further down the road. But we believe in Edmonton that's really a good position, because we have a lot of these regional and commuters flights that will potentially run on hydrogen, like let's dream 10 years, 15 years. So yeah, that's just taking it slow, but like surely, and having this checking point to showcase it's working and it's safe.
Got it, got it. It's great to see that you're able to apply some of these things today in your hydrogen, for example, the snow sweeper. Um, let's talk about sustainable aviation fuel, but because that's a technology that's a bit closer in terms of becoming real, and airlines already using them. You've formed partnerships with companies like Six Ring, Forge, to advance SAF production in the Edmonton metro region. How do these partnerships work, and what role do you see SAF playing in the broader context of Edmonton Airport and aviation?
So we're lucky to have these partners. They are local. They're willing to advance the agenda on sustainable aviation fuel. So early stages, looking at what is feasible, the pathways, making sure it's certified and acceptable by airlines. Ultimately, I think SAF, the way we see it, is SAF and hydrogen are not two competing technologies. We believe that it's like almost complementary. SAF is the technology that would be available, is already available for longer flights. The availability of these production sites and production volumes is the main question here in Canada right now. Like, I think we have some level of production in BC, but across Canada, we don't have per se like a massive production network in place. And so for us, it's really kind of advancing the agenda, sharing with the regulator, like what is at stake for our industry in Canada, what needs to be developed to make sure that technology is ready. Because yes, we can focus our efforts on hydrogen. That makes a lot of sense for Edmonton, but I'm taking, international flights. They will still need some sustainable aviation fuel. And so we need to work with all these kind of players to make that happen. And that will need to come with like obviously some policy adaptation and support. And that's what we're working on right now. And not just us, like across Canada, like with other airports and like the regulator, fuel producers, the OEMs, like everybody needs to kind of like move the needle and just accelerate the integration of SAF into, the sector.
It's lovely to see and learn about these partnerships. And I remember, I think it was last year during the Sustainable Flight Challenge that Sky Team ran, where KLM actually chose Edmonton as their long haul flight experiment. I think they won an award for that as well, isn't it?
Yes, and actually that was my first interaction with the airport because I was still working for Air France-KLM back then, and I remember flying to Edmonton. It was in May 2022. So imagine it's like
Right.
actually it's tomorrow. It's been like 3 years.
3 years.
So it seems like yesterday though. And so that flight was, yes, it was the Sustainable Flight Challenge by Sky's team by then, and KLM selected the Amsterdam to Edmonton routes for their long haul flights. And it was just an opportunity to showcase that it was possible, and not just the staff integration, because I think the incorporation was like almost 40% of staff incorporation for that flight. But it was just to showcase all the small kind of like quick wins that can happen aboard the aircraft, but also, on departure and on arrival to kind of make a flight more sustainable. And I was really kind of moved emotionally by that flight because it's you feel that you're part of something. You're part of building the future. And I also did the Air France flight between Paris and Montreal around the same period because that was their long haul entry for Air France. Um, and you see that aircraft just the last turn before they arrive at the gate, and you're like, wow, like it's happening. It's not just something on paper. And so you're kind of like giving an extra, it's like a free ticket for an extra boost of energy about going back to your desk and like, we need to accelerate the change. And so, yeah, that was my first interaction with Edmonton. That's how I met our current CEO, Maren Keen. And yeah, the rest is history.
Wow, this is such a small world because I remember working with Sky Team on that first challenge in 2022. And I remember them being very excited, so excited that Sky Team made it to my first book on sustainable aviation, which I wrote with Dirk Singer. And there's a dedicated chapter on the TSFC, as it was called at that time. and we covered the KLM flight. I will be sure to send you a copy of that book, and listeners here can get their book on Amazon as well as simplyflying.com/Sita. But yes, we featured the SkyTeam effort, and I know exactly what you're talking about and why so much excitement was there at that time. Now, we spoke about the aviation bit of it. There's this thing, there's an initiative YEG has, which is the Airport City Sustainability Campus. I don't know if any other airport does something like this. How and why do you foster this ecosystem, and how does the airport benefit? What kind of sustainability aspects are embedded in this campus?
Yeah, and I think that's coming back to the fact that we're the largest airport by landmass in Canada. So 7,000 acres give you the freedom to explore a lot of things, right? And so, beside the sustainability aspects, we have a mall, we have two hotels, we have a Costco on site, we have a casino, we have a golf. Like it's just like it's a small city, right? And so my team is really kind of trying to, bring new partners on that campus. So, for example, we have Wide and Pine, which is a B Corporation certified organization that offer natural-based solutions. We also have Plant Plus that develop eco packaging with plant fibers, and all these type of actors makes a lot of sense because it's not just us alone. You need a whole community. You need a whole ecosystem moving together to make something bigger. And so we have that chance, and I'm very grateful to kind of like work on that sustainability campus. And we always open to welcome new partners. They are willing to develop new projects. Something that is a little bit less, business driven, but I would say I was very keen is we welcome 50,000 bees last year for the first time on our site. So we had a partnership with Alville, which is also a certified bee corporation, and we had a partnership with the Alberta Beekeepers Commission. And we know biodiversity is very important, and bees are part of that ecological richness. So we put that in place, and that will help YG to really understand a little bit better what is the biodiversity on our campus and working together towards a greener future. So we have various awareness workshops, including with our passengers, to kind of educate, bring them the aspects of the bee program, honey testing, because now we have our own honey, and just
Wait, you make your own honey? I have to pause you. You make your own honey? Is that right?
yeah,
At the airport?
it's not yeah, it's not an industrial production though, but we have our own honey, and it's
Wow.
produced by our on-site beehive. It's just bringing that awareness, and I was amazed by the level of interest from our passengers, from our employees, but also from the local communities on like, okay, Marion, you have bees on site, and so what? And trying to explain why we're doing these things. Obviously, safety is a core top priority at the airport. For aviation, it's a core priority. But and so we have some wildlife management really kind of like in place, but really kind of like also showing like what is the biodiversity that is happening at the airport is also a great awareness lever for awareness, like for people to understand that sustainability is important, because if you remove bees, you don't, the cross things with agri-food is not happening. And Alberta is a province that rely a lot on agriculture and agri-food. So bees are part of that ecosystem. And so that's important that we showcase the support and where's awareness around that. It was a fabulous partnership. I was amazed by the interest from different stakeholders on that.
Wow, I'm so fascinated. I almost feel like I need to bring my daughters to Edmonton to just check out the bees and the
You
beehives.
should.
Uh, have you converted this into any retail uh, opportunities? Because I know like Dublin Airport has its own wine, or no, its own. What do they have in Dublin? The cognac or spirit label? Yeah, in Dublin duty free you can buy. Yeah, you can buy a type of whiskey. There you go, Irish whiskey, which you can only buy at the airport. So the airport commissions that. I know Air New Zealand has its own signature wine. Maybe it's time Edmonton had its own honey.
We're not there yet. The jars of honey that are produced by our beehive have been incorporated into our corporate gifting activities. So I know we have our annual public meeting soon, and we're going to offer some of these jars to the participants. So we're not there yet. I know there is some U.S. airport that have some partnership and just showcase that honey. I don't know if it's the airport honey, but I know there is an angle within the terminal. We're not there yet. Maybe like maybe one day. Like we're not. That's the beauty of that sustainability campus and the culture also at the airport is like that innovation. It's like you come with an idea and you explore if that makes sense for us, and then the whole organization move to let's make that happen. Let's go to the yes because that's an airport that have a vision that really want to do the right thing. And so yeah, maybe one day, who knows?
Wow. Okay. I'm just so fascinated because who would have thought an airport can think beyond runways and terminals? This is very, very innovative thinking. I have to ask you typically, an airport has scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emissions, and scope 3. And while a lot of what we have spoken about is about scope 1 and scope 2, what about scope 3? How are you working with your airline partners to address and potentially even reduce scope 3 emissions?
So that's something that we're looking at right now, moving to the ACA level three from level two to level three, is just engaging with our partners because what is our scope three? Our scope three is somebody else scope one and two, correct? So it's just making sure that we have these open discussions, the challenges that they face, how we can support. So, for example, a lot of things right now, a lot of discussion are with our airlines partners, how we can support electric ground support equipment or any type of other ground support equipment that are greener or helping to reduce emissions and make sure we understand what is at stake for them and see what we can do on our side to support them on their own journey. Very important, like the stakeholder engagement piece for scope 3 emission is very important because we don't control these emissions. And that's the elephant in the room. Be really like an ecosystem shaper and a supporter of any type of initiative that these partners have is fundamental. We're working very hard right now to just, engage with these stakeholders, just identify them because I don't personally own these relationships. Some of my colleagues have these relationships. So engaging with them, meeting them, explaining, what we are planning to do on our hand. And I talk about the cogeneration facility that we had in place since 2021. And when we shared that, you know, highlight with some of our tenants were like, oh, I have a couple of questions. Like, how does it work? Like, what was the benefits of capturing waste heat and within the terminal, and just making sure we can offer that free heat basically for the air terminal building. And so that's just how you're going to slowly but surely help reducing scope 3 emissions. It won't happen in 2 days for sure. And it's a lot of dialogue, a lot of stakeholder collaborations.
I love it. I love it. And I'm glad you're thinking like an ecosystem here, not just in your own, in your own space. Finally, I want to talk about the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub, which recently relaunched with YG as a key partner. I know we covered hydrogen earlier, but this is much bigger, where you, as an airport, is playing a key role in Canada's hydrogen economy. How does this work, and what are some of the initiatives that you're excited about?
Yeah, it's very exciting to see the relaunch of the hub. And so for us at Edmonton International Airport, it feels like it's a natural evolution of the work that we've been already doing. So as I mentioned earlier, YG is right in the heart of Alberta's hydrogen corridor. And so we have that incredible opportunity to help shape how hydrogen is actually used and not just talked about. And so when we looked at ahead of our 2050 net zero targets, we really see ourselves playing a key role in Canada hydrogen economy. First, we're definitely a test bed. We can trial hydrogen technologies, and we're already doing it, as I mentioned, like ground support vehicles. But we can imagine like freight trucks, or even hydrogen power aircraft one day, right here in a live operational airport environment. And that's usually valuable for proving what is viable at scale. So really supporting what the herb is trying to do in terms of like, doing some test bed, and leveraging test bed opportunities. Second, we got an infrastructure and logistics footprint to be a real hub, what we call an energy hub, and therefore a nitrogen hub. And, we have the expertise here. We have the players. So that's a matter of just being one part of that network and just really supporting the rest of the network. And that goes from bringing together energy companies, but also airlines, government, as well as researcher. Like I think there's still a lot of research and development that needs to happen. And what is most exciting to me personally is just really seeing hydrogen power regional aircraft come closer to reality. The same way that I saw that sustainable flight challenge by KLM, it's just I really want to be part of that story, to see that it's happening, it's there, and just really bringing all the kind of parts of the puzzle that needs to be around the table to really kind of showcase and demonstrate that hydrogen is a big part of the puzzle for Canada. And we're really proud of helping shape that future.
Right. And I think after the latest Canadian elections, there's been a lot of talk about making Canada an energy superpower. And there's talk of both conventional and new forms of energy. So Alberta has been the fuel of Canadian energy. And what's not to say it can't be the center for the future. And it looks like you're already playing a lot of role in there. Um, Final question for you, Marian. Airports around the world that are just beginning their sustainability journey. What lessons have you learned at Edmonton that can help others accelerate their transition to a more sustainable future?
Yeah, that's a very good question. One of the most important lessons that we learn at YG is that progress doesn't require perfection to start. Sustainability can feel overwhelming, especially for airports managing tight budgets and operational complexity. But taking the first step, even if it's small and imperfect, creates momentum. I think that's the key thing in that perspective. Another key lesson is the power of partnerships. No single airport can decarbonize aviation alone. It's unrealistic. We've made the most progress when we worked with others, like governments, airlines, academia, peers, and especially for Edmonton Airport, Indigenous communities. I wanted to go back before we wrap up this interview to something that we brought at the airport, and it seems small, but it was not. We brought drones at the airports to support our environmental goals, but not just our environmental goals, also a social impact footprint. So in 2021, we became Canada's first airport to integrate drones logistics into our operations. And in 2022, we began regular scheduled commercial drones delivery operation in controlled airspace. And that just not help to reduce the last mile emissions. It's also bringing, especially for that specific project, high value goods or medical goods to Montana First Nation Medical Clinic, which is very close by the airport. So it's a partnership with Drone Delivery Canada, Airport Apple Express, BBE, Montana First Nation, and some city of Leduc and Leduc County very close by the airport. And we're doing that because we want to demonstrate that we can bring a solution to a challenge. So the challenge is bringing, for example, convenience goods to remote communities that may not have access to certain type of goods without the use of drones. And so it's really kind of like trying to understand what is the ecosystem that is around you and start small, but then develop a solution that makes sense for your peers and your partner. And because alone you'll feel very isolated at some point, and embedding sustainability into core business strategy, it's not a side project. It's something that you need kind of a full 360 vision. And so that needs to be into risk management, innovation, infrastructure planning, customer experience, trying to understand what makes sense for you as an airport. Because maybe something that I developed at YG might not be relevant for another airport that just start their journey. They might just pick and choose like various ideas from other airports, right? And lastly, I would finish to answer your question on where to start on you know on the sustainability journey is transparency and storytelling matter. It's very important to share the journey openly, to build trust and to encourage more collaboration. We like airports in general are just beginning their sustainability journey, and we shouldn't wait until everything is perfect to communicate. It's just sharing the story can inspire others and bring in new allies or new solutions, new partner that can just support your efforts. So again, I said it earlier, disclosure is not performance. So if it's not perfect, it's okay. Like vulnerability is also something very important, and just showing you the reality of your challenge, because nobody's going to believe you if you're saying, oh, sustainability is like it's done, like it's problem solved, it's going to be resolved in 2 days. I won't believe it, and I don't think a lot of people won't believe it.
Those are fantastic tips. I love, not striving for perfection and working with partners as some of the best tips you've given. Thank you so much, Marian. Now, the final part of this interview is a personal rapid fire round in which we get to know you as an individual a bit better. So I'll start with something simple. What's your favorite airline?
Well, I'm definitely biased here. I would say Air France. The one.
No, come on. You know how disappointed Air Canada is right now. Not that you're in Quebec.
Oh no! I mean, I am a big frequent Air Canada traveler. I fly back and forth, but I would say there is a certain elegance with Air France. Flying with them is something that I'll always appreciate. It reminds me, the flavor of home. So yeah, I'm biased.
Okay, favorite airport? That's not Edmonton.
That's not Edmonton. I really like Paris. I really like Paris airports. Maybe because I'm familiar with it.
Hmm.
But like the sound, the light. I fly a lot from Terminal 2E, and like the lights and the fact that you can observe all these planes. I really like it. And again, it feels like home, so I can
Yeah,
relate to that.
I love observing the planes. Yes, that I fully agree with you on. Your favorite book?
My favorite book, I would say The Royal Game or Chess Story by Stefan Zweig. I don't know if you know the book. It's the morale of the book is like intellect and inner strength, with creative thinking and personal resistance are crucial in the fight against tyranny and dictatorship. So it really kind of focused on the fact that the mind can be both a source of survival and a mean to overcome, the dehumanizing forces of tyranny. Like that book. It's a small book, but it's yeah, great book.
Very nice. Favorite movie?
The Great Gatsby. For the decor, the glamour, the underlying moral about the pursuit of happiness, and the realization that sometimes the things we chase are not what we truly need. Plus, my dog Gatsby will totally appreciate. I'm also a big fan of the Art Deco style from the 20s, so
Right.
the design and the bold lines just speak to me.
Love it. Okay, that's been mentioned a couple of times on the podcast before. What is something that you do in your free time?
I love digging into archives and exploring architecture. I find so much inspiration in how spaces and story are preserved over time. So I would say that, and of course, like many of us in aviation, I'm always dreaming up of my next travel escape. The world is too big and too beautiful not to keep exploring. So that's something that I'm always chasing. Is like where I'm gonna heading next.
Well, I think you and I are both heading next to Pittsburgh, and we will see each other in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Totally.
What is something you'd like to learn?
That's such a great question. I think something that I've been that I've always been curious about, though I'm not sure I'll ever have the guts or the time to fully pursue it, is learning how to fly. I'm in total awe every time I'm in an aircraft up in the clouds. There is something magical about it, like this blend of human ingenuity and the beauty of nature. So I worked in aviation. I spent a lot of time talking about decarbonization flights, but to actually fly in an aircraft myself, that would be a whole different level. That's one of these quiet dreams that I keep in the back of my mind. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Well, I know a lot of companies, especially startups these days, include flying lessons. So that might be something interesting for you to consider
Yeah.
in the future as well. And final question: what's the best advice you've received?
Um, Never take no for an answer. This advice has been instrumental throughout my career, especially in driving initiatives that challenge the status quo. Persistence, creativity, resilience, and the courage to keep pushing forward are often what leads to real change. And to work in sustainability, it's almost a prerequisite. You have to, if you can't go through the door, you need to try the window. And and that's something, an advice that have been given to me at the early stage of my career. And to this day, I'm really kind of pushing to change, to just rethink and reinvent ourselves, because I mean the planet deserves that for the future.
Right. Very, very well said, Marian. I've truly enjoyed this conversation. I love how the scope of Edmonton Airport's efforts is not limited to just the airport or the runway. How you're thinking, you have this complete ecosystem thinking, and it's very heartening to hear. I look forward to meeting you in person at the World Innovation Summit in Pittsburgh, which is where we are both speaking, and I will be launching my new book on sustainable aviation as well. So I can't wait to meet you, and thank you for sharing the stories that we will also speak about on the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air. Aviation is one of the hardest to decarbonize industries, yet there are multiple paths to get to net zero. Awareness is key to a green future. So please give us your support to help our sustainable aviation insights reach a wider audience. You can do this by sharing this episode on your network, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even WhatsApp. Or perhaps you might consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this episode. You can start a conversation with us by writing to us at podcast@simpliflying, that's simply with an i.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website green.simplifying.com and join the movement. Sustainability in the Air is an original podcast by Simplifying. The show is produced by Juraj Toth in Slovakia. Dirk Singer is our Director of Sustainability, who leads research for each interviewee out of Greenwich, UK. Shubhadeep Pal is our supervising editor based out of Mumbai and Singapore. The articles are written by Ayushi Badola in Dehradun in India and Meera Hull in Montreal, Quebec. Creative design is led by Lihia Esteve in Montreal. Baiba Driman is the project director for the show based out of Valencia, Spain. Special thanks to Wendy Sim in Singapore. And I'm Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying and your host. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.